All right, we are back here on the podcast today talking some NBA hoops here. The All-Star break is winding down, but it's kind of an annual tradition here on the podcast. We get together with the guys from the Sorry to Interrupt podcast to talk some hoops and a lot of interesting stuff going on in the NBA. First up, we just heard from him a couple weeks ago on our Super Bowl preview podcast, the betting special. Sean Rowe's back with us. Sean, how are you?
Mike, how we doing, sir? Thanks for having us on.
Been pretty good. Most of us flop with those Chiefs picks, but I think we did have a good time.
Yeah, wasn't my finest moment. That's probably what you get for having me on a gambling pod, but all right.
You did lay out the case for the Eagles, though. You did make the case. Say this: if this is gonna win, this is what happens.
I hedged my bets pretty well, man.
Yep, and also here with us today, the other half of the main duo on that podcast here. He was recently on here. We talked about the Aaron Rodgers docu-series Enigma on Netflix. Tom Bocchino's back with us. Tom, how are you?
I microdosed a little ayahuasca for this one, so I hope you boys are ready for a show.
Are you still in mourning that Aaron Rodgers is leaving?
I am a little bit. I would have liked to have seen it for the year, but and it seems like he wanted to come back, but the Jets didn't want him back. I'm all in on. I want Browning. I want the Bengals to give him up.
You're on the Jake Browning train.
Yes, and I know we're here to talk NBA, but for the love of God, like the Jets might kill me. I might have a heart attack at 30 if the Jets get Kyler Murray.
They're not going to get Kyler Murray.
I pray to God, man. I don't think they will.
I'm watching Justin Fields. I feel like that's one that they're intrigued in.
That's one where you're paying nothing for him. I'm and he's young. I'm willing to take a chance on him. I'm not willing to ride the Kyler Murray roller coaster. We know how that's going to go.
And he's boys with Garrett Wilson too, which also helps.
Very true. A familiar target.
Yes, very familiar target here. But let's talk some hoops here, NBA season time. So obviously, like interesting season to say the least. No one saw the Cavaliers coming and becoming what they became. Boston's Boston, OKC's OKC, the Knicks, the trade deadline, all the chaos here. There's a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of
Yeah,
drama. A lot of drama. Always. This is the soap opera league.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, nobody saw the seismic trade that to end all trades of Luca to LA. But no, I mean it's been an interesting year. OKC and Cleveland have been the cream of the crop, but Boston's waiting in the wings, and then it's really like, who's that next Western Conference team going to be? So it's the top. The top is always interesting. There's a lot of moving parts. Some big names got moved like they usually do, but for the most part, I think we have a pretty good pulse on the state of the league right now.
Yeah, that's for sure here. Let's start in the local front here, and we'll start with the Knicks, obviously. And it feels like I talked about in the open of the pod. It feels like that the excitation, like you look at the Knicks like on a macro level and say, oh, okay, like they're 36 and 18, they're third in the East, they got two All-Stars in the All-Star game for the first time forever. Like everything's great, but it feels like the fandom, Tom, is like still very cautious on this team because the bar went up so high, and like when they've gone up against the big boys, they've not looked the part. So, what do you think about what we've seen out of the Knicks and how good they actually are?
I can echo your sentiments there as a Knicks fan for where, in preparing for this pod, I had a feeling you were going to ask where the Knicks ceiling was. And I was really struggling with it because I want to say that my expectation is for them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but most likely you're going to play Cleveland or Boston in the second round. And I just don't see them beating that team. This team is so much fun to watch. Offensive efficiency wise, I believe last time I checked, they were actually leading the league ahead of the Cavs in a couple of key offensive statistics. But I mean, you know what worries us about this team? Any Knicks fan that comes on your pod, we know what worries us about this team. It's the depth, and it's Tibbs running the guys into the ground. And Sean talks about it sometimes on the pod where he's like, they do get some rest. Unfortunately, due to the lack of depth, when Tibbs does try and give these guys rest, the 25-point lead goes down to an 8-point lead, and then he's got to bring all the starters back in.
Yeah, sure. I feel like also part of the issue with the Knicks situation too is, I mean, yes, Mitchell Robinson not playing this year doesn't help, but like they went all in on like this group, which looks very good on paper, and they perform well offensively as defensive issues. But like to me, I think the Knicks fans also haven't factored in that, like this is a pretty much brand new group, and it takes time to build the kind of chemistry you need and figure out what are we missing, what can we do, especially now with these like luxury tax aprons and stuff. It's gonna take a little bit of time, I think, for the Knicks to get those last few pieces to put them into that title mix for sure.
Yeah, I mean, to me, honestly, like there haven't been any chemistry issues since like the first month of the season. Like Tom just mentioned, they're first in efficiency in the league. Like if you watch that starting five, it might be the best starting five in the NBA. They fit together perfectly. They all know what their roles are. This version of Bridges is phenomenal because he can have the nights where he scores 30, 35, and can have the nights where he scores 15. I mean, he's always guarding the other team's best defensive player. I mean, Josh Hart is, I feel like I'm not a Knicks fan, but if I was, I don't think I could possibly fall in love with a player more than how Josh Hart plays. Brunson is the alpha of that team. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns has surpassed all expectations from Knicks fans. He's been unbelievable this year. And so to me, honestly, I mean, OG is hurt now, but he was absolutely outstanding this year. You'll get him back. The depth has been hurt because you don't have Mitchell Robinson. I think that's just such a huge deal. And you lost Hartenstein, who was an integral part of the team last year. You got guys like Cam Payne and Precious Achua, who can give you nice minutes off the bench. I just think that they haven't been able to fully construct their roster the way they want to, which is why I think next year is the year that we're talking real chance to win an NBA championship because they'll fill in the margins with the guys that they need to based off of what they have, to work with as far as under the apron ramifications. I just like I hear Nick fans and like I totally get it. You're afraid to be really good, but you guys are really good. Like you pass the eye test. There's just a couple teams who are a little bit ahead of you, but you are legitimately good. And I think you should embrace it, honestly.
Yeah, I think they are legitimately good here. And I think the thing that hurt them a little bit is that they got Towns so late in the offseason that like now you have the time to build a chemistry. Like a lot of the ring chasing vets who would like be signing for like vet mins, like, oh, I can go here and win a ring. Like they all found teams before the season started here. So like you wonder offseason, like if the Knicks, have this core, they do well in the playoffs, maybe some wing who like is late in his career but can play a role for like 15 minutes a night and say, "Oh, I'll go to the Knicks for minimum money to try and win a ring." You feel like they're past. You need to get either one of the two of those guys, the ring chasers, to come help you out, or you have to turn Mitchell Robinson into a better fitting player.
Agreed 100%. I think there's more moves to be made to put this team at the top, and I am enjoying the run. It's just you get beat by the Pacers last year, and it leaves you with a sour taste in your mouth. And then this year you're looking at the Cavs and the Celtics, and like I said, it's just you want to say that you expect them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I think second round is really our expectations. And you're absolutely right. They were holding out on that trade for so long because they did not want to put DiVincenzo in it, and they ended up having to do it. And at the end of the day, the Knicks won that trade going away. So I'll take it 100 times out of 100. But that did cost them, to add key pieces of depth towards the back end of the offseason.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we are in agreement here. Like everybody, I feel like that with this group, like there are still defensive lapses really get exposed against the more proficient offensive teams like your Boston's and your OKC's and Cleveland's did good against them the first time they played. Like I feel like it would be a surprise if they got to the Eastern Conference Finals beating one of those two teams. I feel like they're still a tier below them right now.
I'm right there with you. That's why I can't put them in the Eastern Conference Finals definitively, just because you look at both teams and the matchups are scary. I mean, the Celtics with the depth combined with the two big time wing players that they have as well as the guard play. And then the thing that the Knicks struggle with most is guarding guard play. And Cleveland on the other side has some two really good guards as well. So I just don't see it either way.
Yeah, sure. I think the only way if you're a Knicks fan, if you have hope here, is like there's still 5 games left against Boston and Cleveland, including two this weekend on Friday and Sunday here. Like you want to see the Knicks start to put forth a better effort against these two specifically. If you want to buy in and say, okay, this group can go deep into May and June.
I would, but I would want to see it at full strength. And I still don't know if OG is back. And if you don't have OG, you're not fully healthy, which means that a huge part of your team isn't going up against, let's say, a fully healthy Boston or Cleveland team this weekend. So I still would pause on that. I would like to see what a fully healthy, rested, loaded Knicks team is. Because you look at some of these games and the season's so long, but you can go back and be like, oh, Brown didn't play in this game, or Garland missed this game, or on the Knicks side, it's like, well, Anunoby's out, or Cat was out that game. So, oh, the long story, end of the story is, I just look at this Knicks team and I'm like, okay, can we measure it fully up against a fully healthy Boston or Cleveland team? If the Knicks aren't fully healthy, you can't do that. The other thing too is just to put to bed this entire narrative that Tibbs runs his teams into the ground. You don't want to be the number 7 seed and have to deal with a play in. So
No.
you're going to have to play your regular guys, and these are all guys who love to play a lot of minutes. But unfortunately, Anunoby is somebody who gets hurt all the time. Cat's had injuries in the past, but he's been playing through a thumb injury. You got to play your best guys, and you got to win some of these games in the dog days because you say, I think it's just a lazy narrative. I would love to get your guys' take on it. I think it's a lazy narrative when I hear callers calling into some of the radio stations being like, Tibbs is just running his guys into the ground again. That's why they get hurt. It's not why they get hurt. They get hurt. They're going to get hurt if they're injury prone. A guy like Anunoby's injury prone. He's going to get hurt every year. A guy like Mitchell Robinson's injury prone. He's going to get hurt every single year. It just is what it is. That's why the depth is so critical that you don't have this year.
Yeah, plus it's like it's not even just like the fact that they're injury prone guys. Like the way they play is very physical. So like these guys, like you're playing more physical, whereas if you're more willing to just run to the 3-point line, you're not trying to crash the glass as much. Like you're more prone to get hurt that way.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. When Tibbs first came to New York and they started having a little bit of success, before we really got to know him, you can blame him for the depth. But as you watch this team, like I alluded to earlier, when you're giving up double-digit leads and sending them down into the single digits and making it a game again, and then he has to throw the starters back in. Really, what do you want to do? This team's problem is their depth and their lack of big men, and they need to solve that problem in the offseason, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know all the hub about this team, like what they can't do. Like people also the reality here, there is a chance this might be the fourth best team in the league. Unfortunately, two of the top three are in their conference. It makes it very hard for them.
Yeah, and two of the top three are significantly better at Nick's very weak points.
Yes, that's a problem here. So I think we'll put the Knicks side for a minute. Sean, as a Nets guy, I gotta ask you here, is this playing thing actually possible?
I freaking hope not. It is because the 76ers can't get out of their own way. And as we head into the break, the Nets have won 6 out of 7. I mean, they will beat the really terrible teams in the NBA. Like they've beaten the Hornets, they've beaten the Wizards, they've beaten the Jazz, they've beaten the Blazers. I really hope not. I mean, Tom and I talked about it on our pod last night. Like the one thing I feel great about is Jordi Fernandez is an outstanding coach. So even if they end up drafting 7th or 8th, I think the guy that they take is going to fit the team perfectly and be more set up for success than maybe outside of Cooper Flag, maybe one of the Rutgers kids go into like a Charlotte or a Utah, like a really bad team that's not coached well, that doesn't have, good veterans around them. And they may not turn out to be what we thought they would be because when you have a culture of constantly losing, that permeates even to the young guys that come on board. And you've seen that, like I think Scoot Henderson, if he was drafted into a better situation, could have been better. But that Portland team has been actively trying to lose for a long time. Long story short, Mike, I really hope that the play-in is not there because that means they would have about a 3% chance of getting the first overall pick. And it doesn't do them any good. I think they've already proven to themselves and to the league that Fernandez is a great coach and they're competitive and can beat you on the right night.
Yeah, and Tom, the thing that's scary if you're a net fan who has that viewpoint is that, like not only can Philly knock it out of their own way, like the Bulls ripped the team down to studs pretty much, and they're sitting in the 10th spot right now. You're only a game and a half back of them. So like Chicago falls and Philly doesn't, get it together and Brooklyn's playing hard. Also, you can see Brooklyn in that 10 hole on play-in tournament night.
Yeah, I mean it's at the point now where I think Brooklyn's head coach might be too good. I mean, Sean's alluded to it on our pod. They're throwing F and G. Can we curse again?
Sure.
They're throwing fucking G League players out there and winning games. And like you said, the Bulls and the Sixers, doesn't matter who they play, Maxey, Kobe White, whoever, and you name all these much better players, and they can't get out of their own way. I mean, the Nets may just stumble into the playing game.
Yeah, it's like Billy just stumble ass backwards into the play in.
Yeah, which is crazy because it's the last thing you want of all three teams. You by far do not want to be in the playing game, but I mean, at the end of the day, silver lining, like you said, massive silver lining. The Nets found themselves a head coach, and they found themselves a couple of head coaches over the last few years with Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland as well.
Yeah, they could have still had Kenny Atkinson if certain superstars didn't want their own guys in the building.
Yeah, listen, we all know that every single fan base, especially a fan base that would never get superstars like that, and in any other circumstance, would do it 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, and I think it's very funny too with I think the only guys who on the people affiliated with the Nets who would want to be in the play-in are the 14 players on the roster and the coaching staff because like we saw what the front office did, Sean. I mean, last year, like when they sent the Cowboys out, they made this trade with I think was it Phoenix or who had control? Oh, the Rockets control their picks
Yeah,
back.
Houston.
Yeah, they control their picks back, and then they're trying to actively take pieces off the roster, and they realize Joy Franz is good. Where they sent out Dennis Schroeder when he was feeling well as their point guard for a bunch of second round picks. They sent out Dorian Finney-Smith to the Lakers, get D'Angelo Russell back here. They're like actively trying to make the team worse, and they still can't get them far enough down here. So the front office must be like so pissed right now.
Yeah, so I saw that in your rundown, and I think there's more nuance to it. I don't think they're that upset about this because if they really wanted to tear it down, the blueprint is there. They would have traded Cam Johnson for anything they could have gotten for him. But they believe that their turnaround is not going to be that long. And I think they realize that we do have a coach. We are in a market. Like I think that's the other thing that has to always be considered with the Nets over teams like Charlotte and Washington and Utah and Portland. Like they play in Brooklyn, New York, and they've already shown they can go get superstars to come play there. They are going to have the most cap space of any team in the NBA. And I think with all this treasure trove of assets, I think they're like, hey, our rebuild is not going to take that long. It takes the next disgruntled superstar who fits our timeline to say, I want out, and the Nets are well positioned to go do that. That's why getting out of New Jersey 10 years ago was so important because nobody wanted to play there. Brooklyn, everybody wants to go there if they can't go to the Knicks. So they're fine there. But so I don't think the front office is really that upset at all. I think they'd rather have this. Now, granted, you go and trade Dorian Finney-Smith on the surface, that sounds good, but you bring in D'Angelo Russell, who I know is a very flawed player. But when he gets to play his ISO basketball and his pick and roll basketball, he made Claxton instantly better. Claxton was having a horrible season. And you have Cam Johnson, like you have adequate players and you didn't trade them or shut them down. So you're going to stumble into wins. They agreed to a buyout with Ben Simmons and they're playing like G League and two-way guys that are having 21-point nights and beating the 76ers. So I think that they drew up in the beginning of the season that they were going to win 17, 18 games. But even from the get-go, Tom and I did a pod in like November and we're like, yeah, this team is definitely going to blow through their 18 win projected, win total. So I think the front office is actually okay with this. And that's the moves kind of signify that.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking on the recent net box scores just to see some of the guys that are getting minutes here. You got guys like Trendon Watford's playing 24 minutes, scoring 18 points against
He's playing good.
And he's good. That's the thing.
That's the other thing, Mike, that you're talking about how the front office and whatnot wanted them to tank, which I agree with you. All signs pointed to that. But like I could go up and down this roster. There's some good talent on this team. I mean, you mentioned Wofford, obviously Clowney, the Nets are very high on, as am I. You have Claxton. Keon Johnson, and I watched him put up 30 a couple of games ago. This team, I didn't even mention Cam Thomas or Johnson. This team actually has some talent and some pieces going into next year. They're not like the Wizards where it's just Jordan Poole pulling up from half court every time.
Or Chris Middleton now. They just dumped Kyle Kuzma.
I feel bad for him. I do. But you know what? He got his ring in Milwaukee, so.
But the Princeton kid, Tosan Abumwan, like getting big run too.
Yeah, no, I mean, oh yes, a boom one, big bruiser in there. But I mean, this team has talent. I mean, I would feel really good as a Nets fan from where I was at the beginning of the season to feeling how I am now.
Yeah, you just hope that the basketball guys reward you. Like if you miss the play, that you get the ping pong ball bounced the right way.
You know what, man? That's what I'm hoping for. It's like, you swung for the fences with the big three. It failed epically. I think the NBA would be very happy with the Nets being a really good team. It's another big market team. It's the second one in the city, obviously, but I think they're thrilled with how good the Clippers are. Even obviously, they want the Lakers to be the best. So, I think it's good for the NBA, for New York and Brooklyn to have a rivalry. For Brooklyn to be good in the same city as the Knicks. I don't know if that's going to happen, but like I said, even if they end up drafting seventh or eighth, like I think that the player they draft is going to turn into be a really good player. And when you're picking in the lottery in the top end, that's really all you can ask for. And again, they have all these future assets. They have 15 first round picks in the next 3 years, 4 years. So like they're loaded. And because they play in the market that they do, they can go sign whoever they want, or they'll be fully equipped for the next big name that wants out.
Yeah, and we talk about like like the NBA, like we heard all theories about the NBA's like could break the lottery, get people where they want here. I mean, look at some of these options where Cooper Flag is probably the biggest prospect to come into the league since Zion. Like some of these options at the bottom of the league here. I mean, Utah, the Pelicans, like Charlotte, like the NBA, if they had their way, would love to get this kid to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
No, I mean, and like Sean alluded to earlier, I mean that's for Cooper Flag. That's a lot of really badly run franchises, and he mentioned Scoot Henderson, can mention Zion, a bunch of others where it really matters where these guys go, and you want to get them into a good infrastructure. Not everybody's going to be Wemby, where you could put Wemby on a team with us and probably beat probably beat the Wizards.
Yeah, and Mike, to Tom's point as well, like I could never see the NBA, even if they wanted to be that nefarious, being like, oh yeah, the Brooklyn Nets, that's our team we want to load up. They don't, as much as I think it's good that they're in this market, let's make no mistake, they are not one of the icon franchises. But I think they should rig it against teams like Washington and Charlotte, because it's like, how many years are you picking in the top 3 or 4 and can't keep your own lottery picks? Like, no, you guys can't pick higher than fifth.
What do
Like,
you think?
screw
Should
you
we
guys.
should we institute a rule in the NBA? If you're in the lottery for like 5 years in a row, the next pick we'll call it a PP slap pick, and they have to pick 15 or lower.
Yeah, I like
You
that.
get slapped on the PP for being a shit franchise.
Baseball has that with their lottery, where like you can't pick in like the top the lottery like two. I think it's 2 years in a row if you're like 2 or 3 years in a row, then you get knocked down if you're in there. So
I don't hate it. I mean, something's got to change, or else the
Yeah.
league is going to continue to have teams like the Wizards with I don't even know. I got the standings up right here. How many wins do they have on the year? Yeah, they haven't even gotten to double digits yet. So
yeah, I mean we're in late February. The Wizards haven't gotten their 10th win yet.
it's
They
crazy.
play a game in November.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I mean, it's got to be tough. Just the fact that they're even still functioning as a franchise, they should be forced to sell.
I mean, think about the Wizards here for a second. They went from 2-2 to 2-18 in a span of about a month and a half.
The Wizards haven't been relevant or good since they were the Bullets. I mean, they had a couple uh, Gilbert Arenas years, and then you had, I guess, Beal and Wall. But like, what's the highlight of anything I can remember? I mean, guess what? John Wall, or who was it, jumping on the scorer's table in the second round that they ended up losing the series anyways?
Yeah.
I
Not,
mean,
speaking of not great, we talk about All-Star Weekend here because on a weekend where the NHL had 4 nations and we have fights dropping in the
here we go. You ready to dump on it, Mike? Go ahead.
yeah. So I mean, think about this weekend here. What we had with the All-Star Weekend, we had Chris Paul called his plan to cheat in the skills contest. That the NBA said no, no, no. That's too soft for us. We can't have cheating in the skills contest. We had arguably the
I
worst.
respect it, by the way.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
fucking respect the hell out of it.
Tom loves cheaters too.
And
So
I wouldn't expect anything less from a great competitor like Chris Paul. If you're not going to get a ring, you might as well win the skills competition.
And Wemby was so pissed about this too.
Hey, listen, I will say Wemby was the one shining light to the All-Star game, and really the only piece of hope because when LeBron leaves this league, Wemby's going to be running it. And if he actually decides to play in the All-Star game, it might have a fighting chance.
Yeah, I mean, you got that going on. You had, like, I mean, at the same time, you got this great USA Canada game on. You got the dunk contest where, like, Mattis Bazulis and Andre Jackson can't hit dunks in 90 seconds, and Mac McClung is schooling the entire league again. You have LeBron bailing an hour before the All-Star game so that nobody can take his spot, which is one of the most insecure things I've ever seen him do. And then you had this really bad format of the All-Star game where he basically played like 40 minutes of basketball in 3 hours, and we had a lot of Kevin Hart and the Mr. Beast contest and the retrospective from TNT about inside the NBA. Like, this might be the worst All-Star weekend they've ever had.
No, I mean, for me, like they came up with this like weird. They said it's a new way to play basketball with the statistics thing. Honestly, I've cracked the code on that. It really what it is. It's a new way for them to figure out a way to try and trick us to put more fucking commercials in there. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Bastards.
It's absolutely awful, Mike. And you're right on everything you said. Like, I kind of roll my eyes because at this point, like, I'm
Even
so I'm so past the point of caring because they don't. And Tom said it on our pod last night, which was brilliant. LeBron James is to blame for this.
it's his fault.
Yep.
Yeah, Tom, why don't you? I want you to say what you said on our pod briefly yesterday.
So yeah, I mean, the NBA can throw millions of dollars at this. I mean, all they'd have to do is make one phone call to me, and I could point at the culprit right there. It's LeBron James. I mean, I said it on the pod yesterday. If you chronicle it, every superstar, every face of the league was so prominent in All-Star weekend. Going back to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant did the dunk contest. They named the MVP after him because he goes so hard at the end of these All-Star games. Michael Jordan before that. LeBron James, young in his career, was scared to get embarrassed. He skips the dunk contest, never does it, and then sits out All-Star games like this. He doesn't care. So then why does anybody below him have to care? It takes the best player in the league to set an example for the rest of the league. And this is where we're at, which is why the only hope we have is that Wemby continues to play the way he did in the limited minutes he did in the All-Star game and just go super hard, because that's the only way that you're going to solve this. You can say, oh, we're going to give the players $1 billion. We're going to make this game to 40 and stupid stats. And you can do whatever you want. The only way that this thing is going to matter is if the players care.
Yeah. That's a big issue because I think Charles Barkley called out Draymond Green on the TNT broadcast. It's like, you guys not playing hard is the reason why we had this stupid tournament, because we got to try and maybe get people care about this thing.
Yeah, Adam Silver needs to chill with the tournaments, though. Like, this guy, like, is trying so hard to make every version of the NBA season like European soccer, and it doesn't need to be. Like, you've already got your play-in games, you got your play-in tournament. I guess that's worked. And then now you have this in-season tournament, the Emirates Cup, whatever the hell they call it now. I think it's cool. It's fine. I don't care. It doesn't make me care more about the NBA regular season. They can have, a round robin tournament. It doesn't matter to me. In early December, I am focused on college football and the NFL. And the NBA I'll get to. If my team's not good, I'm kind of halfway in, halfway out anyway. But that everything Tom said is right. And I don't know why we do this every year. And it's because it comes in the time of the calendar when nothing else is going on other than college basketball. We're waiting for baseball. We're waiting for March Madness. We're the NHL is doing their thing. Good, honestly, good on the NHL, but that's a singular thing because you can get those guys to care about their countries like crazy. Like, that's all that matters to them. They care. There's a bunch of players, I bet, in the NHL that if you pulled them, they would rather win a gold medal in some fugazi tournament for their country than win a Stanley Cup. But in the NBA, they don't care. So why should we? I just see it now and I'm like, okay, it's broken. It's done. Maybe we don't even have to fix it. Maybe they can just do away with it. They'll name an all-star team and they'll have whatever. I don't care about the dunk contest not having the best players. At this point, that ship has sailed. I actually like seeing a guy like Mac McClung go out and be so dominant and it being so funny. The fact that he played 5 minutes in the NBA this year, but he's so good at this one thing. It would be like a career minor leaguer going to the home run derby every year, absolute tanks and winning all the time against these like 45 home run, triple crown, MVP type candidates being like, what the fuck? This guy's insane. So I actually don't mind that at all, but the game is a disgrace. And the game's been a disgrace. I don't care what the format is. The players don't care. Then why should we? Let's just move on, because we do this every year. This isn't new.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's the All-Star game though, Sean. That's the only thing I will say about the Mac McClung thing is that at that point, why not bring in Jordan Killington or whatever these guys are that I see on TikTok dunking? Like seriously, what's the difference? No disrespect to Mac McClung. I'm sure he'd cook me in basketball. He's basically
Well,
in the
bring them
NBA.
too. Bring them too. That's
No,
fine.
but that's my thing is it's that doesn't fix it. If we want it to be,
yep.
this is the all-star game.
Where are
People
the All
want to see
Stars?
the stars,
Yeah, where
man.
are
And
they?
like exactly, like nobody wants to see, no
Andre
offense.
Jackson.
Exactly. Like put that shit on YouTube. Cool. Have a G League dunk contest or whatever and have everybody participate. But until you put the stars in the all-star, it's not going to matter. And the other thing is it's like NBA with the play in and all this stuff. They put it to try and drive popularity during the football season, but then they turn around and they take NBA TNT on Thursday nights because they're so scared of the NFL, and they put it on Tuesday nights. It kind of ruins the luster of it. And I liked having those Thursday night games because if the NFL Thursday night games sucked, at least I had something to watch. So it's like NBA, pick a side. Are you going up against the NFL or are you completely scared of it as well, on top of the All-Star game debacle?
It's also like the thing like with Christmas this year when the NFL had the doubleheader on Netflix and they crushed the NBA again. LeBron going grabbing a mic saying the NBA's that Christmas Day is our holiday. Like the NFL just take what it wants. You guys not put up a strong enough fight to like maintain your holiday.
No,
Nobody can
it's
though. Nobody,
competitive.
nobody can. You're going to lose every time if you're facing up against the NFL.
And
Yeah,
that's the point where it's like, listen, I think every other sport has to just accept the fact that like the NFL is king right now, and it has been for years, and like everybody else just has to work around it. Like this All-Star weekend, like Sean alluded to, is one of the most dead periods in sports. This is such a major missed opportunity for the NBA to generate interest, generate income, and just throw an incredible weekend where every single eye would be on them. Like, I honestly think All-Star weekend, I want to say it was in like, maybe it was a big deal to me because I was like 10, but I want to say All-Star weekend in Houston in '06 was like the biggest deal ever. And it's just gone all downhill from there. Like
yeah.
All-Star weekend used to be like the biggest party. Like all the NBA players always said, all the women there. It was like bigger than Super Bowl weekend. And now I said it on the pod yesterday. It feels like a 3-day long AT&T commercial.
Yeah, I mean, top of that, you'll throw in here too. I mean, like obviously, I think it got magnified with how hard the NHL guys were playing in the USA Canada game compared to like seeing, Chris Paul is flicking basketballs and like Andre Jackson failing to hit dunks. But like the way I look at it is sort of like I think like number one, like the idea that the NBA has to have the dunk contest last is dumb because you're putting your worst players basically in the biggest spotlight. Like the 3-point contest will be last year maintaining this format because at least you get some stars in there most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. At this point now, if you're not going to have stars in the dunk contest, I absolutely think you're right. But I also don't think it has to be 3 days at this point. I think that you could put the dunk contest at halftime or something and kind of condense this weekend. There's a lot of things that can be done. I think
Yeah,
aside from
but then you're not selling a ticket for All Star Saturday night. That's the whole.
I know, but I mean, who gives a fuck at this point? All any podcast in the world is doing is saying how terrible this weekend was. So I mean, they need to go back to the drawing board. And outside of getting the players to care, which is the only thing that's going to solve this, number one is we have to go back to a basketball game, please.
Yeah, stop with the tournaments, please. I think Draymond was right. Like I get why they try the rising star winners, bring them in to like actually try and make guys play hard so they wouldn't get embarrassed. But like if we're doing that, that's a sign that like we have a bigger systematic problem that we need to bring in like young first and second year guys, try and get our best players to at least try in an all-star game.
Yeah, and if that's going to embarrass you, like I don't think anything embarrasses these guys.
I don't
Like
give a fuck. I
You're,
mean,
you're, if you're not embarrassed by guys, chucking up half court shots as regular shots and playing no defense, like what? Playing against rookies is going to do that because those rookies are going to be in the same spot as you in another 3, 4 years, not caring. Like Tom said it very well. Like LeBron, he made not caring cool, and he made it the standard. So if everybody else can come up to the All-Star weekend and be like, I'm not competing in this, I'm not doing this. Sure, I could win it. Has Kevin Durant ever competed in a three-point contest? Like, he would be incredible to do that. But
He
like,
did play horse back when they had horse back in the day. I'll give him that.
okay, so like, but it's like, yeah, like you're not going to do that. Like, why didn't the Sabrina Ionescu Steph Curry 30-point shootout happen this year? That was supposed to happen.
That's
Like,
another thing. They should have had
come
what's
on,
her face from
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark. Like she's probably a bigger star than 90% of the NBA. Like why can't we have her cross over? Like what's the problem with that? And it makes me sick the amount of money they probably spent on this weekend. They might as well put it in a blender, had Adam Silver drink it, and piss it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think in terms of the situation with, like that's the game going on here, I think like you're right that, LeBron is like sort of the culprit for a lot of this, but like there's not much you really can do here. I mean, like I saw tweets about like, John Morant saying, "Oh, like Mac McClung, maybe we should dunk like AG and Zach. Let's come back here." I'm like, no shot they actually follow up on this a year from now.
Hell no. You know how many times LeBron James broke my heart as a child by like alluding that he was going to do the dunk contest for like the first 6 years of his career, and he never did it.
I remember 2008 because like I'm preliminarily putting my name in the hat.
Oh my God. I mean, he's been at this for a real long time, and we're gonna miss him when he's gone. But the axe run a little bit dry for me. I'm gonna be honest with you. But like seriously, guys, we don't have like the only way this is gonna get solved is if the best players in basketball start to give a shit again. That's it.
I also think too, like guys, like sorry to cut you off, Tom, but like I just think that sometimes it's like sometimes things just come and go. Like we're always trying to redo something or go back to something. Like when the All-Star game was invented, like you could not watch, a lot of fans couldn't even watch their own damn team.
Well, the All-Star game was invented because of the dunk contest that was made by the ABA that made Dr. J famous.
Right.
You know?
So you weren't able to, I mean, baseball did that too. I mean, the All-Star game was because you couldn't watch these other great stars very often or at all. And now with League Pass, which I know has been around for a quarter century, but you've got League Pass. You can watch any game you want. You've got social media clips going crazy. You can watch highlights from any team that you want. If you're a fan of a player, you're just going to follow that player wherever they go. So it's lost its appeal. Like, if you want to watch Wemby, they're on a lot. If you want to watch LeBron, they're on a lot. Like, you can watch your team. You can watch a bunch of other teams. You got the nationally televised games on ESPN and Turner. So, like,
League Pass, you going deeper.
100%, 1,000%. But like, also, why are we surprised? If they can barely get these guys to play in games that they're contracted to play in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, like, the great point, Tom. Great point. So, I don't think we need to fix anything. Just do away with it, except that it's never going to be the same.
The problem is that this weekend is gold. I agree with you. The fact that like I don't think they should do away with.
But do what the NFL then do what the NFL did with the Pro Bowl and just make it like if you want to have a game where everybody fucks around but everybody's cool with it, then that's fine. If you want to play a game of horse, you can do that.
But why can't we just nix the playing game in November and have it now? And not have an All-Star weekend.
No, because that whole point of that tournament is to be earlier in the season to get eyeballs to watch it.
Push the season back.
They're never going to do that.
You're not going to do that, because you're asking them basically to concede revenue by giving up home days, which owners will never give up.
No, not at all. I'm asking them why in the world, in the heat of college football and college basketball and NFL season, do we have to have?
You're not going to have the NBA season going into July and August.
There's no desire for that. None.
Yeah, you're right. They'd probably have to trim the schedule back, which will never happen.
Plus, July and August are months of people on vacation, which means it's hard for people to watch TV, especially when you're having your playoffs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, by the time the NBA Finals wrap up in mid to late June, depending on how long the series goes, everybody's happily done with it. So then it's like, okay, we go on vacation. Like, you're then going to tell these players you're going to give up your summer vacations now? Like, not going to happen. So I think if they really wanted to make Christmas the unofficial or the official beginning of the season, they could have done that. They're not going to do that. So we are where we are. This is what the NBA is. And they're also at a crisis point that Tom and I briefly touched on last night on our podcast, Mike, which is the sport has never been more popular as far as stars, as far as market value, as far as players. I mean, between American born and international superstars, it's crazy. It is unbelievably global. It's the most like popular thing in the world outside of the NFL, but the
And
NFL is really
soccer.
only an American thing and soccer. But like, dude, nobody's watching the games. They just shelled out an insane amount of money to Amazon and NBC for the rights, and nobody's watching full NBA games, especially you're in a part of the season where because it's so long, nobody cares, but it's so easy to fly in and out of the NBA. Like, Tom, I could do a pod with you if you said, hey, like, we're not going to talk NBA for 3 weeks and you're not allowed to watch anything or take anything. Mike, you could be like, hey, I'm bringing you guys back on in early April, but you're not allowed to watch any NBA until the week before you come on. I could give you a 3-hour soliloquy about the NBA and give you everything about all these teams. It's so easy to do. There's a lot of other sports, basically every sport. You can't do that. Like, if you want to talk about Arizona Diamondbacks baseball in July, you better be watching a lot of Arizona Diamondbacks games because you're not going to be able to just pile it in and start talking about the rotation and their bench and this new rookie that just came up because it's too hard to do. In basketball, it's so easy. So that's another thing. It's so ironic that the sport's never been more popular, but have never had more problems.
Yeah, I think also I think
Other than maybe the cocaine era in the 70s. But.
yeah, well, that's a different conversation. But I think this is more going towards like what Draymond Green was talking about here, like where the product is a problem, where like like we have seen the game sort of become so specialized, where it's like run to the corner for threes, drive for layups. Like there's not really any like physical defense during the regular season, not really trying like show the skill of the game, or it's sort of like where baseball before the pitch clock and and banning the shift thing sort of happened, sort of like came in as like like the teams doing nothing wrong. They're trying to play within the rules, and they realize, oh, like it's smarter, higher percentage, take more threes than twos, and mid range twos are the worst shot in basketball. But like the way the game is set up right now, it's a very boring watch, especially a regular season game where you have X star is sitting out the back to back because the team science says he can't play more than 4 games in 10 days because he's gonna get hurt in the playoffs, and the way the playoffs are, it's like it's very hard to sell this idea of like regular season basketball matters, and I can understand why people just are not tuning in.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think that the NBA is going to have to look at some adjustments. I mean, I hate the like softball home run limit on threes, like things like that. I don't know why it rubs me the wrong way, but like they're going to have to make some adjustments, maybe to the 3 point line. Maybe they bring it in from the corners to the arc or to the elbows. I mean, like, just get rid of the corner three altogether. But the NBA is going to have to figure something out. But also, like, I think it's obviously the product of that, but it's also just the fact that these guys don't want to fucking play and they don't treat every game. I mean, you watch an NHL game in the middle of the season and these guys put their blood, sweat, and tears into every damn game like it's their last. Wayne Gretzky said it. I treated every game like my last.
Yeah, they kill each other every game.
I mean, does Bradley Beal treat every game like his last?
Nope.
No.
I mean, that's
yeah, to go off of that too, I think those are two different conversations. The product on the floor, and the NBA's kind of always been this way. There's nothing less enjoyable to watch, I think, in any sport than really bad NBA basketball. Like when you get the Wizards and Hornets, like God bless you if you're watching that freaking game. And there's teams that just don't have talent and aren't trying. And that's a large part. That's why the NBA with the lottery was like, no, we're giving the bottom 3 teams the same odds to win the lottery because these teams are actively trying to lose. And that worked for a tiny bit, but then teams are like, whatever, even if it's a 14% chance, I'll still do everything I can to lose every game. And then you have the product, and you guys mentioned already the load management, which I think has gotten a little bit better, but teams.
It has. They implemented a few rules, and it has.
But the on the court thing, like I think in any era, guys, really bad NBA basketball has sucked, and I know that we're all millennials, and we're talking about we need to bring back the physicality. I talk to my dad all the time. I talk to other people who are older than me. Tom, make your joke whenever you want. About the NBA in the 90s. It was not aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, I mean
You
that's the
had
other
guys
thing.
running into each other, basically
Yeah,
playing fucking rugby.
four guys in the paint.
Yeah, and no creativity. The real stars would not cut it in today's NBA. When you watch really great basketball in today's NBA, even if it's a game where the Celtics are shooting 63s, it's still really fun to watch. The problem is you have teams with guys who are shooting 21% from three, fucking, 18 a game. Like that's really bad. But like I said, there's in every era of the NBA, like I think this era of the NBA and the 80s was probably when the game was, from an era standpoint, at its absolute best. The 90s are glamorized because of the Jordan Bulls and the Knicks that were, the Madison Avenue
Those
bully.
all those games
Yeah.
were slugfest though.
But those games are finishing 71 to 65. Like that's not good basketball. And if you play back, you would watch those games. You'd be like, this sucks. Where's the scoring? But now it's just like, hey, there's plenty of scoring, and there's games that are ending in regulation 138 to 131. But there's a lot of skill, and you can't condense that skill. Like the skill in today's NBA, we've shit on some of the worst teams in the league. They all have like one or two excellent players. It's just a matter of whether there's anybody else around them, whether there's good coaching, or whether they have free reign to just huck it up. Like Jordan Poole is a very skilled basketball player. He just has free reign on that team to just basically play pickup basketball.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm saying more is I feel like even back in like the 90s, I feel like these teams all had their own like distinct style. Like when you played the Knicks, you're getting in a street fight. When you played the Bulls,
Well,
like,
Mike, I will say this. I think that has to go. I think the game has evolved skill wise in a positive direction. I think the reason why we don't have that anymore is because none of these goddamn teams stay together for more than 3 years. So
yeah,
none of these teams can develop an identity or a style. You're absolutely right, and that is depressing because I'm looking back at the nostalgia, and you had your Knicks teams, you had the Bulls, you
the Heat.
had the Jazz, you had the Heat, with Tim Hardaway and Mourning and those guys, and like all these teams, it was like they were together for 6, 7, even sometimes a decade, and like none of these teams can develop an identity because there is really no team that is a team that sticks together.
Yeah, and as I was saying, it's like now, like though, like there's everybody seems to play the same style of chase again, race to the corner, shoot the three, like like drive the lane, try and shoot free throws, like try and dunk. Like everybody plays the same brand of basketball to varying degrees of success. So it's not like you have like the Wizards saying, we can't shoot threes. Let's try, do it another way. They're saying the model says shoot threes. We're gonna shoot threes if we can't make them.
Yeah, but again, I still think if you watch really good teams, it's totally fine.
Yeah, that's
You're
more
not,
of a testament to lack of talent and bad and terrible coaching, which
yeah,
honestly,
yeah, for sure. And again, like if you watch the Denver Nuggets on the right night, like that's
oh man, it's
beautiful
poetry.
basketball because it's
Golden State Warriors,
yeah.
from 2016 through 2020. I mean, yeah, that was some special basketball. I think if you look back at the eras, bad basketball is bad basketball and good basketball is good basketball. I will say with the caveat though, I do think that they should think about eliminating the corner three. I think it would expand the game and make it a little more difficult, and make teams think a little bit more. But another prong to that, I think, is we are in the NFL and in the NBA. I think we are in a coaching epidemic. Like I don't know if we just have to go back to the drawing board on figuring out like what these guys like what makes a good coach qualification wise or whatnot, but there is just too many bad coaches out there.
Yeah, not enough good ones.
No, and I don't know what the fix is.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
the NBA, like with all sports too, Mike, like it's very cyclical. Like we're gonna come back around and there will be another law or another rule that's legislated in that changes the game a little bit. Like once hand checking went away, the whistle became a lot more friendly.
Well, you saw it happen last year, Sean. If you don't remember, right after the All-Star break, the NBA instituted those hush hush secret defensive adjustments, and the games got a lot more intense towards the second half.
Phenomenal point. So there you go. Like those things are going to happen. Like on the competition committee, like nobody wants to be hearing podcasts like yours, Mike, and ours coming on here and just shitting on everything about the NBA. But you know what? We're all talking about it, and we're all going to be paying attention to what's going on. And again, I think that is a microcosm of where they are as a league. Everyone's talking about them. Everyone is happy. Like when that Luka trade happened, that broke the internet. Like that broke national and international news that has no sports affiliations. Like it was massive. It was unreal. But then it's like, oh, well, now it's the All-Star break and it sucks. But then I guarantee you the playoffs are going to start and everybody's going to be really, really amped. Football just went through this before, right? They were talking about how scoring has never been easier and you can't play defense and it's unreal and it's not fair and you can't play defense anymore and you can't hit the quarterback. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles just absolutely demolished the Chiefs rushing for the entire game. Defense is back. Like there are trends, things will change, things will happen. And then it'll return to homeostasis. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's something to definitely watch there too. I think I just go back to the big rant Nick Wright had against the season about the NBA at the corner. Obviously, with the threes being a bad TV look and sort of saying, oh, this is going on, and like I think between that and like I think obviously the load managing is the bigger issue. Is just especially he made the point beginning of the season as well. It's like, oh, like how are you telling your fan, oh, like Paul George needs 15 games to get ramped up. Joel Embiid is going to miss like every back-to-back because he had to manage his knee, or Kawhi Leonard is going to miss the first third of the season.
Well, that stuff is injury based. I can't control that. It's the ones where it's like, oh, we just don't want him playing back-to-backs. Like I think it was Embiid that said, I'm never playing back-to-backs again because I need to be ready for the playoffs. So you're admitting that you just can't play that workload, not necessarily because you're hurt, but just because you want to be 100%. So you are diminishing the regular season. I also think it should be a rule that if you are going to sit out a star, you have to sit them out for the games that you're playing at home. You get 41 home games. You're going to road arenas in some cases once a year, in other cases two. You have to play the road games if you're a superstar. If you want to sit out, you sit out at home.
Yeah, that's the whole thing of, oh, like you spend your hard-earned money going to the NBA game to see Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid isn't playing. Like now
Because
what?
again, people are it's a stars league. Like if the Spurs are playing in Brooklyn with the version of this Nets team, nope, there's not a lot of people that are going to watch the Nets. They're going to watch Wemby. So he better be fucking playing in that game.
Yeah, I mean Joel Embiid is not playing in Denver since what, like 2019?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, no, and then I think the other problem with the league is just the disparity in talent and the rampant tanking. I think the NBA, for me right now, thinking of the major sports leagues, has so many buckets of problems
Yeah.
that it's like, honestly, did we push the boulder too far,
Yeah.
or whatever they say? I don't know.
There's 5 teams that have a realistic chance to win a title. You have about
I'd say 3, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm saying in like a generality, but you're right. I mean, if there's not a dynastic team or a super team, I think you could, like last year nobody had the Mavs go into the NBA Finals, so that's why I said like 5.
Yeah.
But you have like 7 or 8 teams that enter the season intentionally trying to lose every game they play. Like that sucks for the league. And they tried, like I said before, to get rid of it by giving the bottom 3 teams the same chance at getting the lottery, and they don't care because there's such an influx of talent, with the exception of last year's draft. Everybody's like, fine, I'll take the 2nd or 3rd pick. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to be anywhere competitive. And then you've got the teams that are stuck in consistent purgatory.
The Bulls?
Like the Bulls and the Hawks, who are just like, hey, we can sell to our fan base that we're competitive every year. Competitive. But I think that's the worst area to live in the NBA because you truly don't have a shot. If you're the 7 or 8 seed, unless you're one of these great teams that just had a lot of injuries or were kind of load managing their way through the season, like you don't have a chance in hell to win anything.
It just feels good that the Knicks weren't mentioned in that purgatory sentence.
Hell no, they're damn good.
Feels really good. I have not been able to say that often in my life, man.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at that, you want to be in the mushy middle, is like I like to call it. Whether it's like Atlanta,
Yeah, you're sitting on the fence. You're half pregnant. It's terrible.
the Heat minus Butler, the Bulls, I feel like the Mavs are there now, the Kings are there now. Like you don't want to be in that no man's land where it's like your hope is we get in the playing turn, we get smoked by the two seed in the first round.
Right. But if you ask the owners, they'll take it because they're getting at least two home games
Yeah,
and two playoff games.
yeah, that's true. So let's quickly round up a couple of things here. So, is there anybody outside the Cleveland, Boston, Oklahoma City bucket you can see being the title mix?
Sean, you want to go?
You said Cleveland, Boston, Oklahoma City?
Anybody outside of those three, you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a world that exists where the Knicks are there. Yeah.
You trying to
I'm
butter
not
me up?
picking it, but yeah, I mean, if their starting five is just prolific as hell, and I mean, we know that every team is just one injury away. What if this little slump that they're in is not just an isolated situation? It's really hard to repeat. What if Cleveland gets a really bad injury? You can talk the Knicks. Memphis is a very interesting team, but as Tom said on our podcast last night, it's like as soon as they get one great piece back, another one goes down. Minnesota is very interesting, but they've been blah this year. I would have said Dallas if they still had Luka, but they don't. And people want to talk Lakers. They don't have enough defense, and they don't have enough impact players in the front court. I mean, the West should be a lot better. I guess my default would be Denver.
Fuck.
I
I
guess
was
I would
hoping
go
you didn't
Denver
say
in the
it.
West because with Murray's reemergence and Jokic being what he is, you got Christian Brown playing well. So I think I would probably go. I would put New York and I would put Denver in in that conversation.
You didn't buy Draymond saying that Golden State's win the title this year?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I mean, I think they got a little bit better with Jimmy Butler. They have a second guy that can actually create some offense for himself outside of Steph, but they don't have the pieces around those two guys to do anything. And Draymond needs to worry about playing basketball than doing anything else. I really don't have anybody else. Sean took literally every ounce of meat off of the bone there. Thanks for that one, Sean. Those are the teams that I see having a chance. I am very high on Denver as long as Jamal Murray can keep playing this way and stay healthy. Keep your eyes out for him. Maybe a futures bet.
Do you think he can still play this way all season?
Yeah, I do. He's still young. He was coming off that injury that what was it, a knee injury that he tore up his ACL, and it took him felt like 2.5 years to come back. But I'm telling you, he looks explosive and he's doing it consistently.
Yeah, I think another one. It's hard to find other teams because you look at the list here. It's like,
well, if because I wanted to say the Magic, but then it's like that's a reach. That's just me saying a team because Sean took my teams.
They can't score.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a scumbag, Sean, but whatever. It's no big deal.
Like you're looking at, can Dame and Giannis get the Bucks hot enough? I don't think so.
No, they don't. No, I mean, in a 7-game series, it's tough to count Giannis out because he's an absolute savage. But no, Dame isn't a turnstile on defense, and he's old. He doesn't put up. He's not as consistent of a player as he used to be.
One other team that's kind of interesting is Indiana.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry,
Yeah, I mean,
another one from you, Tom.
No. I don't think Indiana has a legitimate chance to win the title, but they can get hot, and if Halliburton can continue to play the way he's playing towards the closer to the All-Star break than at the beginning of the season, I think they can compete with anybody because they have a lot of depth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last thing here, was this the wildest trade deadline you've ever seen?
I mean, not from the volume, just from the one big bomb, which Sean already did an excellent job chronicling on on the last pod or the second to last pod that he came on. I mean, he did a hell of a job.
It was the last one he came on.
It was the last one. I couldn't even keep track.
That was right before the Super Bowl that trade happened.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job, basically chronicling the whole thing. I'm really proud of him for that.
I mean, you did have a lot of big names move besides him. I mean, you had the De'Aaron Fox trade, you had Jimmy Butler. Like there were a lot of big names on the move.
Yeah, the only reason why I wouldn't say it was like as shot just because we knew those were coming. Like obviously, I mean, who didn't know Jimmy Butler wanted to get traded? I mean, seriously. And then Fox had said that he was open to and wanted to go to the Spurs about 2 weeks earlier. So we kind of expected that. But the biggest surprise is obviously Luka. Like that blew us out. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Tom, thank you. I'm always nervous when you give me my flowers because I feel like a shot's coming right across the bow any moment.
No, I'll save my shots for when they're ready.
Yeah, yeah. But no, Mike, I mean, I think we could be prisoners of the moment. I think that isolated trade was the biggest like wow moment because you I always defer to people who like study this and the history of it. And like you had people like Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo talking about it. And like you had people like Brian Windhorst being like, we've never seen anything like this. So if they're saying that, I'm gonna have to believe them. You just don't see a player like that get traded. And if they do get traded, it's usually because they're demanding a trade, and that team will wait it out until the summer because those deals are very hard to complete in the regular season. You do have a lot of 3-team and 4-team deals now, just with the aprons and the new CBA. It's very hard for just 2 teams to work out an agreement. I mean, that year, I mean, it was just 2 years ago, guys, that out of basically midnight, Kyrie Irving said, "I'm not signing an extension and I want out." And within 5 days, Kyrie Irving's in Dallas and Kevin Durant's in Phoenix. Like that was pretty crazy. Shaq was traded a few times at the deadline. You've had some big ones. I mean, Pau Gasol, of course, going to the Lakers. Like you've had some seismic trades that shook up the league. I think that they're probably looking back have been more active deadlines,
Yeah.
more trades. Like Tom said, like everybody knew Jimmy Butler was getting traded, everybody knew De'Aaron Fox was getting traded, and in today's NBA, you have teams basically picking their destinations. Like Jimmy Butler could only go to like 2 teams once Bradley Beal said he was not waiving his no trade clause. And then obviously De'Aaron Fox was like, well, I'd love to go to San Antonio. So then they got the Bulls involved, and Levine went to Sacramento. So the one trade, to answer your question, that was the wildest trade I've ever seen, just given the fact that nobody heard anything about it possibly happening.
And the context of it as well.
And the context of it.
Luka's a 25-year-old generational player.
Totally. But the rest of it was kind of like, yeah, I mean, push came to shove and those guys got moved.
Yeah, I think also the funny thing you mentioned, like how we need these 3-team trades to facilitate the apron and stuff. It's always now a fun thing to see when the Utah Jazz just pop in a trade and
Yeah.
second round picks.
Danny Ainge was like, I'm not sitting this out. Bring me in.
He's a bloodhound, man. He'll sniff out any deal. I love that guy.
Yeah, it's like whenever you see the meme of like Aaron of like the guy from CNN of Wolf Blitzer popping in like in the middle of like a thing, like that's Danny Ainge doing a trade.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of fun with the NBA here. While you guys are coming on, well, I've always appreciate it. How do you guys keep up with your pod? Keep up with what you guys are doing?
Yeah, you can follow us on the TikTok at sorry_sports. Same thing on Instagram. What is it? Sorry Sports on Twitter, Sean.
You got it.
And then the Sorry to Interrupt podcast on all your platforms. Give us a listen. Give us, tweet at us. Let us know how you feel.
Yeah, it's always fun because like I always love to talk to you guys NBA. Plus, I'm sure I'll be making the trip over when it's March Madness time because I like to chat up with you guys.
Oh yeah, we got our brackets and whatnot. I can't wait for that, man. I already signed up for your little bracket competition.
Yes, the friendly bracket competition here. We're hoping to get to 50 people in the pool this year.
Shawnee boy, you're signing up, right?
I'll be in there, baby.
I can't wait until your bracket gets fucked on the first day. Like it.
I told you that shot was coming. I told you that shot was coming. He saved it to the last minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom's just basically calling his shot that it's like by like 4:30 on day one, Sean's was a Final Four team.
I'll tell you, death taxes and me getting hosed in round 1 of the tournament and week 1 of the NFL and Survivor pool.
Yeah.
Maybe you just suck at gambling, and Mike Phillips should probably give more thought to who he has on his gambling.
Hey, I'm here for the analysis. I'm not here for the gambling picks.